B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J.
My name is Stephen Ferlauto. My education was in graphic design, and my career has been as an art director. My passion over the past 40 years has been the study of the divine in geometry and the Roman alphabet. I began this project to deconstruct the Roman alphabet in 1983 while studying graphic design at Tyler School of Art in Rome. My professor, Mario Lavergine, gave me an assignment to design a logo for the city. I focused my attention on the letters SPQR, an initialism for modern-day Rome. I felt that letters must be based on the same considered geometry of a cathedral. I wanted to present that classicism in my logo. At the time, I didn't put much thought into my reference material. I somehow acquired a Xerox copy of a Roman alphabet and began to explore it. There was no earth-shattering concept of proof that I was planning. As I said, I just wanted to design a logo for the city. Before you is a video of my constructed alphabet bound into an artist's book titled Chaos. I went about the investigation of letterform the old-fashioned way. I had a T-square, triangle, and compass. We didn't have computers in the graphics field yet. I used many layers of tracing paper, shifting and rotating their various shapes to help me draw the letters. My compass poked holes in the tracings as I searched for center points to draw the curves of the letters. I had lots of tracings and lots of holes. Somewhere along the line, I noticed that these holes were producing a triangular pattern. I was able to take this pattern and develop a constant that is responsible for all the curvy letters of the alphabet. I also found that the same triangle formed all the angular letters. I knew I had discovered something very special, but I had no idea of the history and mathematical phenomena contained within this triangle. In this lecture series, we discuss this triangle and how it develops into our beautifully nuanced alphabet. The Xerox copy I used as an archetype was the work of Frank Chateau Brown. Brown was a fellow of the American Institute of Architects. He is the author of Letters and Lettering, published in 1921. I believe Brown based his alphabet on the letterforms of Renaissance artist Geoffroy Tory. I wavered from Brown's letterforms only to follow geometric clues that eventually revealed themselves as a compelling design paradigm. Even though our drawings appear to be very similar, they are structurally different. My alphabet is completely based on the 1, 2, root 5 triangle. I will explain the nuances of the 1, 2, root 5 triangle in this lecture, and then we'll begin a study of how letters are drawn based on this form. Here's an image of Brown's alphabet overlaid by mine in white outline for comparison. The differences between Brown's letterforms and mine are very small. If we look at Geoffroy Tory's alphabet and compare all three, the differences between the alphabets are just as small, with the exception of the narrowing of the letter S. The point here is important. I did not restyle letter shapes to fit a planned paradigm. I deconstructed established letters and found a paradigm within them. Historians today seem to have all but dismissed the Renaissance exploration of letterform. I'll read a few statements that summarize academic thought on this subject. The attempt to prove the Romans founded their alphabet on geometrical principles remain elusive. The Newberry's designer and Pacioli came nearest to establishing this thesis, but thereafter, the incompatibility between geometrical theory and any precise Roman practice becomes clear. That's academic Nicolette Gray, Typography Papers number 6, The Newberry Alphabet. The basis of all of these constructions was the mistaken notion that the Roman forms had resulted from a mechanical production based on the circle and the square, the two geometric figures considered to be most harmoniously proportioned. Johannes Drucker, The Alphabetic Labyrinth, The Letters in History and Imagination. That's a fabulous book. I would recommend it to anyone. The hypothesis that there is an ideally correct form for each letter of the alphabet is just as erroneous as Geoffroy Tory's simple assumption that there is a relationship between the shape of letters and the human body. Erroneous because the shapes of letters have been in constant process of modification from their very beginnings. It should be kept clearly in mind that the perfect model of a letter is altogether imaginary and arbitrary. That's the type designer Frederick W. Goudy, The Alphabet and Elements of Lettering. Statements like these pretty much stifled further research. Goudy's argument that letters have evolved over time introduces us to a paradox. How can a letterform relate proportionally to the natural world when its shape was developed through a chaotic human interaction? It is in this paradox that I clearly see the divine. The letters of Albrecht Durer, 1535, assembled from his book of the Just Shaping of Letters. In my first lecture, we looked at Durer's print, Melancholia, and its relationship to the writings of Cornelius Agrippa. I consider Durer's subject of a pensive, perhaps frustrated angel in Melancholia as a self-portrait. The melancholic disposition of the angel is a posture of an unresolved problem. My personal interpretation imagines that Durer is expressing his frustration as he fails in his research to find the divine proportion within Roman letter form. The self-portrait by Durer is being shown in reverse for comparison to the angel in Melancholia. My work answers the search for the divine in letter form and exposes a simple, elegant system solely based on a triangle, which is derived from the double square. To understand the geometry I found within the Roman alphabet, we will begin by defining the extreme to mean ratio. The extreme to mean ratio. Line B is to line A, as line A is to line C, or the lesser is to the greater, as the greater is to the whole. Geometry has two great treasures. One is the theorem of Pythagoras, the other the division of a line into the extreme to mean ratio. The first we may compare to a measure of gold. The second we may name a precious jewel. That's Johannes Kepler, 1571 to 1630. The double square and its diagonal creates the most eloquent division of a line into the extreme to mean ratio. This drawing shows the simple geometry of the division. Numerically, the proportion of the extreme to mean ratio is notated as √5 plus or minus 1 over 2, which equals 0.618 and is notated as phi. The measure of the perimeter of the 1, 2, √5 triangle forms the equation of the extreme to mean ratio. The existence of the Greek letter phi, representing the extreme to mean ratio, is first stated in Geoffroy Tory's book, Fleury. Unfortunately, current history wrongly credits mathematician Mark Barr with this honor at the beginning of the 20th century. Although Fleury is celebrated, most of what Tory says about the alphabet seems to have been ignored by historians. The figure has been drawn to show to the hand and eye how the I and the O adapt themselves to the face of man. Of these two letters, I and O, imposed one upon the other as you can see in the figure, the Greeks made still another letter, which they call phi. Fleury, Geoffroy Tory, English translation by George B. Ives. Renaissance intellectuals were specifically aware of and actively seeking phi, the divine proportion, as it relates to the geometry of the Roman alphabet. We will draw the Roman letters based on a grid formed from 8 1, 2, √5 triangles as shown. This grid is known as the Starcut diagram, and it has some very ancient roots, pun intended. It's argued that the Starcut should be drawn using the 3, 4, 5 triangle. The argument in favor of the 3, 4, 5 is that its measure is definitive, whereas the 1, 2, √5 triangle is transcendental due to its infinite root. Philosophically, that is exactly why I prefer the 1, 2, √5 triangle and its explosive energy. Although the Starcut diagram is a studied geometric form with an incredible history, my work came to this paradigm without any preconceived knowledge of its significance. The paradigm came from studying the letters, not vice versa. The book, Sacred Geometry and the Starcut Diagram, The Genesis of Number, Proportion, and Cosmology by Malcolm Stewart, is completely dedicated to the teachings of the Starcut. This is a must-read for anyone seriously studying sacred geometry. Another book that just recently came out on the subject of the Starcut is The Diagram, Harmonic Geometry by Adam Tetlow. In the next lecture, we will be drawing the Starcut diagram using a straight edge and compass. This exercise will be presented as a meditation. Thank you for listening. I hope you follow me through this entire lecture series. Please visit my website at archetypegeometry.com. Be well.